Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure today to introduce Alaina Burnett, Realtor at Oakwyn Realty in downtown Vancouver. Born and raised in Vancouver herself, her family has called this beautiful city home for over 125 years. She has over 20 years' experience as a realtor, including sales and marketing of over 40 projects in Vancouver, Surrey, Richmond, the Okanagan, and Toronto. No stranger to pre-sale projects, she's here today to share with you the advantage that this market niche provides. Alaina, welcome to our Zoom series.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So, we're here today, as we mentioned, to talk about the power of pre-sale as a real estate advantage. So, let's just start off right out the gate and saying we're talking about what the main advantages of buying pre-sale are.
Yes. And you know what? I think I've seen so many people over the years. I worked in pre-sales exclusively for about 12 years. And I've seen so many people get wealthy off of pre-sales because of the fact that you're buying in the current market, but you're not completing for anywhere from 2.5 to up to 7 years now. A lot of the high-rise towers that they're building are 6 or 7 years out, and then often they're late as well. So you're buying in the current market, but you're actually completing in a completely different market, which usually works to your advantage. I mean, there have been times where there have been dips in the market where obviously you're taking the risk of the market being down when you complete, but usually the market here in Vancouver, as we know, is almost like Teflon. So you're actually completing when the product is actually worth more than what you paid for it. So you could live in it, or you could actually resell it at completion at a profit. You can live in it for a year and avoid taxes if it's your primary residence. So that's always an advantage. Also, staggered deposits make it a
Mhm.
lot easier for people to get into pre-sales. So I've seen deposits as low as 5%. That's usually when they only have a few units left. They might negotiate on the deposit of just 5%. But usually it's anywhere from 10 to 25% down in installments. And that makes it easier for people to save up, to pay it down as they go. And then you have low carrying costs because you're
Mm.
not paying a mortgage on it. You're not paying strata fees or taxes until it completes. So
Mhm.
it's really just a place to park your money for for that window of time and then watch it appreciate.
Now, because you're buying it early and you only have that small initial investment and no carrying costs, can you negotiate on price? Like, is it the same as a regular negotiation on a resale or an existing property already owned by someone else?
Not generally. So, I mean, obviously, a developer, when they are making up their plan for a particular project, I mean, they've got all of their costs laid out, right? So, in the beginning, there's probably not much room for negotiation, although you will see that a lot of developers have furniture allowances or different discounts for early sales. Just to kind of get the ball rolling and that kind of thing. So they might do different discounts for 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes. And that amount doesn't come off until completion on the statement of adjustments. So the contract price stays the same, but on the statement of adjustments, they would take a discount off the purchase price. And those would be advertised discounts. Otherwise, you really can't negotiate on pre sales, in my experience, until they've sold out very close to the entire project, in which case they're just trying to get rid of the last few.
Yeah.
So you might be able to negotiate on those couple homes, but the selection will not be as good.
Yeah, I guess there's no room for, say, you've done an inspection and, you found $20,000 worth of repairs and you negotiate on price, right? So that makes
Yeah, and a
sense.
lot
That
of
makes
people
sense.
don't inspect on pre-sales, but
Yeah.
you certainly can at completion. You have your deficiency walkthrough. You can bring an inspector with you, but most people don't because they just figure it's under warranty. So,
Mhm.
the developer will deal with it at a later time. But yeah, it might be a good idea.
Can you get a discount if you're not working, or as a buyer, if you're not working with a realtor, you approach the sales office, someone like yourself is there. Is there negotiation on price because you don't have a realtor representing you, or do you always have to have a realtor as a buyer representing you?
Yeah, in my experience, there is no discount for coming in unrepresented. Um, Developers know what side their bread is buttered on. And so, in a hot market, they don't really need to deal with realtors all that much. They can sell the project themselves, but they realize that there are going to be lean times where they have to have developed relationships with realtors. So they don't want to burn that bridge.
Mhm.
So they will never say, if you don't have a realtor, we'll cut you a deal, because they know that if the market ever turns, they have to have those relationships. So it's
Mhm.
almost better to find a friend, a family member, somebody that you trust, and then tell them, hey, I found this project. You're going to help me read through the documents. Better take me out for a nice dinner or something like that. Because the outside realtor doesn't do much work, actually. A lot of the contract is explained when you're sitting there and whatnot, but they are there to hold your hand and kind of read through things, ask questions on your behalf, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Are real estate commissions different with pre-sales then as well?
Usually they pay the what you would see quite. You're never allowed to actually say a standard commission, but they
Mhm.
usually pay like it's 3.25 and 1.1625, that kind of thing, to the
Yeah,
outside
so
realtor.
yeah.
And then whoever is working for the developer is either on, they could be on a salary plus bonus system, or they could be on a per deal, or they could be on a percentage of the entire project. I mean, so the inside sales is paid differently from
So
the buyer's rep.
so let's say as a client, as a buyer, your realtor has just as much sort of motivation to take you to see the pre-sale or the office or the pre-sale venue as they
Yeah,
would a resale property, right? It's the same commission structure, so they're not going to limit showing you pre-sales, correct?
no, but
Yeah.
there is one difference. So when a buyer's agent is working with you and they bring you to a pre-sale, quite typically they will get 50% of their commission within, I think it's like 60 to 90 days usually.
Mm.
And then the other half of their commission is not paid until the building is completed, which could be anywhere from 3 years to 6 years away, unless the developer has kind of figured out another deal with realtors. But usually it's
Yeah.
paid half now and half later.
How much does a client have to put down as a buyer? Let's say you're a first time home buyer, or you've bought before. How much do you have to put as a deposit on a pre-sale?
Usually it's the same whether you're a first time buyer or you've bought before. So they don't usually make too many concessions. Back in the day when I first started, they had bonds, and you still see the very odd developer offering a bond, which is nice for first time buyers and that kind of thing. But normally it's anywhere from typically 10 to 25% down,
Now, what
and
if
payable
you
in installments.
are yeah,
Hmm?
I mean, we think Vancouver market, right, with price points, but what if somebody can put as little as, say, 10 or 15% down, and
Hmm.
they're approved for that amount? Will the developer be okay with the buyer only putting that much in? Or I guess that's what a buyer would have to negotiate at contract.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might do a one off if you didn't, say it was 20% and you only had 15. You might be able to negotiate saying that you're a first time buyer or something like that. But
Mhm.
generally, it doesn't happen too often. It would be a special circumstance. And then there was a different deposit schedule if you were a foreign buyer. Of course, we're not really talking foreign buyers right now, but they had to put down, I believe, 35%.
You also touched on this about assignments. So if you've purchased a pre-sale, has not yet closed, can you talk about assignments and when you can or cannot assign the
Yes.
contract and what that actually means if someone hasn't heard that term before?
Yeah, no, assigning is actually selling your contract of purchase and sale before you complete on the project. So you're just selling the paperwork to somebody else and then they'll complete on it. There is a little bit of a risk with assignments, because if you buy an assignment from somebody else and the assignee does not complete, it goes back to the original purchaser. So if you're the original purchaser, there's a bit of a risk involved. Um, and assignments generally are not looked upon favorably by the developers, because if they have units left to sell, they're going to put them on MLS, and they don't want to compete
Yeah.
with original purchasers. They want to kind of have the exclusivity of the whole thing on MLS. So they
Mhm.
usually will not allow you to assign it until the building is sold out or very, very close to sold out. Or perhaps you have a suite type that they don't have any longer. Say they've sold out of all the one bedrooms. So they might let you assign your one bedroom, but they've still got a whole bunch of three bedrooms left or something like that. But it's kind of at their discretion. So, and usually not until close to completion as well. So it's always good to read the fine print and see if it's at their discretion or if sometimes as an advertising thing, they'll say assignments with no fees and assignments without discrimination. So those are things to look at in the contract.
Now, what if a developer goes bankrupt? I know we're hearing a few of these stories in the media.
Mhm.
What happens to your deposit, your contract, any growth or assumed or, you know, thought of growth obviously hasn't closed. So what happens in that situation as a buyer?
Well, yeah. Well, normally what would happen is if the developer did go bankrupt, your deposits are actually protected. They're insured, even if they were using the funds in order to build the development. They're
Mhm.
the deposits are always insured, but the growth is not. So you would get your deposit back, but you wouldn't get any additional profit from, say, the market going up.
Yeah,
And
or
that's why it's so important to go with a more reputable developer. um
yes.
and like these larger developers are able to, because they've got deeper coffers, push through, say, in a down market, or with rising costs of construction, they would push through and get it done, whereas the smaller ones might have to fold or sell to a bigger developer.
Now, as the realtor on the buy or sell side, like I know what how the mortgage financing works, but in your experience, what kinds of questions are buyers or sellers asking or presenting to you as it relates to mortgage financing for pre-sales?
Well, this is an interesting one because this is kind of more where you come in as well.
Mm.
So the developers usually work with a couple of banks, normally like say TD or RBC or who else does it quite often? Bank of Montreal is also a big one. These developer contacts in the banking world generally will hold the rates for 24 to 36 months, and more recently, as the length of construction gets longer, as we're getting these mega high rises that are taking much longer to build. They're holding the rates for much longer. Now, historically, whenever I would present the rates to people, I would say, look, these are really crappy rates. And at completion, you can certainly either renegotiate or go with your own mortgage broker or
Mhm.
bank contact at completion. But of course, now with the rates have actually risen to the point where the rates that we were presenting a couple of years ago are actually really good rates.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
That's
can,
been my experience is that the pre-construction rates are not attractive, but at
no.
least it is a guarantee, but it isn't a commitment. You can look for financing rates elsewhere, say 120 days out.
And as a mortgage broker, do people ever come to you to get the rate hold? Like, do you often work with rate holds yourself or?
Rarely, because we usually only work with a very, very few number of lenders that will do that rate hold. Scotia was, as an example, for a period of time, also underwriting the file, meaning they would look at your income today, your assets today, your credit today, and provide a commitment for financing out 2 to 3 years, which would mean that you wouldn't have to be worried about any changes to government rules. You would have an issued commitment prior to.
Mhm.
But I think those are harder and harder to hold on to now that we're seeing rates coming up and future changes to lending rules on the way. But
Yeah.
I'll leave that for another discussion. So I
Yeah.
think the best thing is for clients to make sure that as of today, would you qualify? If this was closing today, do you qualify? Because if you're not even in reach today, then you have to have a plan to get there. So I just wondered how
Yeah.
many people actually ask about that up front when they're discussing a pre-sale purchase.
Well, the other thing is too that, I mean, something that should be said is that a lot of times that the rate that they're selling at today is a little bit expensive. It's almost like buying a new car versus a used car. And sometimes, I mean, you have to go with that bank because they're kind of doing a blanket appraisal.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it doesn't make financial sense when you're buying it today because it is on the more expensive side.
Mhm.
So if you aren't working with that specific bank that knows that specific product and that one representative at the bank that has been given that file,
Mhm.
a normal bank might not think it makes much sense at the time. It's
Mhm.
really, based on what they feel it will be worth at completion.
Now, what projects are you working on right now? I know somebody might see this video 2 years out, but tell us about what projects you're working on now.
Yeah, I'm working on an upcoming project actually at 12th and Nanaimo near Trout Lake called The Cut. And we're just doing the final touches to our sales center, and we're going to be in there shortly selling. It's 76 townhouses and garden homes, and it's a two-phase development. It's one of the largest that's coming out in East Vancouver in quite some time. So it's going to be quite interesting. But there's a lot of competition along the Nanaimo corridor there as they're
Yeah.
redeveloping. So it's an area where it's really an explosion of new projects that are coming up. We saw Cambie Street get expensive, and then everyone moved over towards commercial, and then and Fraser, and we're just moving farther and farther east. So it's really interesting to see it redevelop and new businesses coming up to the area. And yeah, it's Vancouver. It's always under construction.
Now here's where the rubber meets the road. Have you yourself ever bought a presale?
I actually finally did recently for the first time. So as I said, I've watched so many people get wealthy buying and selling pre-sales, and you know what, I have so many regrets that I didn't start doing that because as a representative in pre-sale, I probably could have cherry picked every building that I worked on and get the one with the large deck or the one with the best view or the one
Yeah.
that just sees over the sight line of a building, so it's the least expensive one with a view. And um and I just didn't have the funds, the extra funds to
Yeah.
to invest. It's taken a long time to be able to get together a little bit of a nest egg to invest in something other than my primary residence because it's Vancouver. So
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I recently invested in a project, and it was three payments of 5%. And even then, I got a little bit of help from a line of credit that I had paid off over the last year and a half, 2 years, so that I'm kind of debt free on the initial deposit of 15%, and now I'm just frantically saving for completion because, of course, you have GST as well. So you have to remember you've got GST on the purchase price, and I'm going to move in there and then make my current home into a rental property. So just try and become a land baron, but it takes a long time if you don't have another wealth source.
So not only are you experienced in the sales and marketing of pre-sales, but you have also done it yourself, which I think adds a lot of value to client experience when you can say, "Hey, look, I've done this myself as well. Here was my personal experience," and add that in. So thank you for
Definitely.
sharing of your own experience. I put you on the spot there,
Oh,
and
no, no,
your
not at all. I
you
think, and
know.
then you know what? I think even for young people, it might be a great solution. If you're living with your parents or you're renting something that's kind of, well, cheap and cheerful. I don't know if there is any cheap and cheerful rentals in the city anymore, but
No.
if you can scrape together that nest egg, and then you don't have to worry as much about it for a few years, you can kind of recover from that initial deposit, and get things organized. And of course, we all hope that we're in a job that's going to be on the up and up, so
Mhm.
that you'd be able to be earning more over time and qualifying for more over time as well. So, it's I think they're actually a really good option for younger people to just get in the market, or for parents to help their kids. Get into a pre-sale. That might be, a good solution for some people to get over the hurdles of the cost of Vancouver living.
Well, thank you again for sharing of your time and your expertise. We will share your contact information in the show notes.
Oh, thank
But
you.
anyone has any questions for Alaina, please feel free to reach out directly or connect with me, and I can do a personal introduction. Again, thank you for taking the time, and everyone,
Oh,
thanks for tuning in with us.
oh, thanks for having me, Katie. Have a great day.
Bye for now.